And we're on the air. Hello, everybody. This is Robert J. Morris, and welcome to my new channel, Truth Hurts. Now, what we're going to be going on about today is pretty much kind of touching on some of the issues regarding the JFK files release that came out. Maybe touch on a bit of that, as well as go back in time to the day that the assassination actually took place. I have here with me a friend and colleague, Bug Smasher. And how you doing there, bud?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on your new channel.
Yeah, it's good to have you on here. It's been a little while. I've been on a 6-month hiatus. I just kind of not really done much, and I just got back to Canada several months ago, and now I'm living in Kitchener, working again full time, and yeah, just getting my life started over again.
Sounds good.
So in the meantime, though, a lot of come out. Well, actually, not so interesting is the JFK files release that, which was basically a tiny percentage of what they were supposed to do, and they also blocked out like 70% of that. So there's a lot of horseshit there, I think. Anyway, you have yourself. You told me earlier that you had a presentation in mind regarding what happened the afternoon of the JFK assassination.
Yes, what I wanted to present today was sort of a slideshow to illustrate some of the coincidences that took place on November 22nd, 1963 in Dealey Plaza. And I think after I've presented these facts, you will probably walk away with understanding that this was not just a murder. This was a pretty complex ritual that took place there.
Right.
And hopefully this will be enough evidence for some people to sort of realize who exactly, what force exactly was behind the assassination.
I see. And definitely will allow other people to take that information and go down the rabbit hole themselves as well.
Yeah.
Well, would you like to share your screen or something?
Absolutely. I will definitely need to share the screen. If you could allow me to. Okay, screen share.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like a rusty nail here. I don't have. I haven't done this in a while, so I forget the interface.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
I can now. Yes.
Okay. So, in order to understand what took place there on November 22nd, 1963, I think we need to go back 656 years in history to the events that took place in the fall of the year 1307 in Europe, and the prosecution of Knights Templar specifically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people know the date of Friday, October the 13th, 1307, and that was the arrest of Knights Templar in France by King Philip IV, who was in a huge debt to them, monetary debt. And
yeah.
But not a lot of people are familiar with what happened on November 22nd, 1307. And what happened was an issuance of a papal bull, basically an order by the Pope, by Pope Clement V. And the name of this bull was Pastoralis Preeminenti. If you could see this on my screen. Can you see it? Can you see the screen?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, I'm looking at it right now. That's why I'm so quiet. I'm actually reading.
Yeah. So the Pope, who actually he did not live in France at that time. He resided in Avignon. Sorry, he did not live in Rome. He resided in France, in Avignon. And he was basically a puppet of the French king. He did not have a lot of say. And he was coerced by King Philip IV to go along with the prosecution of the Knights Templar. And on November 22nd, 1307, Pope issued this bull, which condemned all the Knights Templar in Europe under the authority of the Roman Catholic Church, condemned them to torture and what eventually turned out to be their execution, most of them.
Right. Yeah, I heard about the mass execution. Right.
Yeah, and prior to November 22nd, only the Knights Templar in France were arrested and tortured. And this was the order for all Christian kings all over Europe to basically carry out the same deed.
Right. It's like a massive cleanse, basically.
Yeah. Not all the monarchs have gone along with this order. Most notably was King Edward II of England, who had a really good relationship with the Knights Templar. And he was also embroiled in some conflicts at that time, so he didn't really care so much. And that gave a lot of time for the Knights Templar to go underground in those other countries.
Right.
Form a sort of...
I imagine they would have had some kind of side alliances too, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's normal. That would happen.
Yeah. And eventually they form what is now known as Freemasonry.
Right.
Yeah, it was the original secret society that later became known as Freemasonry was formed by fugitive Knights Templar. And the goal of this society originally was to first protect the brothers on the run, and second was to plan vengeance for what happened to them in the hands of the Roman Catholic Church and the monarchy of France.
Right.
Yeah, and we see these acts of vengeance later on in history. The most notable, the first one was the Peasants' Revolt in England in 1381. And that's a very interesting kind of segue that you could go into later on. But that's not the topic of the show. So this is a very important date, November 22nd, 1307. And yeah, here's the actual fragment of that papal bull. So we need to keep this in mind. Let's now take a look at the actual layout of the Dealey Plaza. Can you see
absolutely.
the photograph? Yeah. Okay. So this is a very interesting place. This is not just a random assembly of buildings and structures.
In Freemasonry, it's quite common to see designs from a bird's eye perspective. Like they usually have a lot of coded designs.
Yeah. So in the center we have the Main Street, and to the left we have the curved Elm Street, obviously, which is famous, and running perpendicular to these two streets is North Houston Street, and the JFK motorcade was heading along the Main Street, then made a right turn onto North Houston Street, and then a left turn onto Elm Street. It is quite interesting that it did not take a direct route, but made that last minute turn off. Anyway, so some of the buildings that we see here is the old courthouse with the pointy rooftops. That's we see the new courthouse just to the left of it, and this is where the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald actually took place. So everything took place in this little little space here, and obviously the Texas School Book Depository down on the left.
Yeah.
And now we go into the structures in the plaza itself. We have two reflecting pools with an obelisk standing on by one of the reflecting pools.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to open up an architectural website. This is not a conspiracy website, but it is basically a blog by an architect who analyzed the Dealey Plaza. So here's what he writes. Enriched with new Grecian peristyles, which we see in 4 places in the square here.
Yeah, I see.
So there are 4 of them, which many think represent 4 seasons. So yeah, enriched with new Grecian peristyles, knee walls, footpaths, and oblong reflecting pools mirroring each other at West Commerce Street bisection of the park. This offset the clamor of motor traffic with leisurely promenades to give pedestrians their turf at busy crossroads. This symmetry was slightly offset by an obelisk erected in 1940 to mark the site of Dallas's first Masonic lodge and honor Dealey, George Dealey, whom the plaza is named after, as a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. Crafted in the image of the crown of Egyptian god Osiris, the obelisk is topped by a tree flame symbolizing the light of intellect. So this guy knows. He probably is a Mason, so because only either Masons or hardcore conspiracy researchers know this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I highly, with the flow of information back then, I highly doubt that you would see such activity in those circles, like in the conspiracy circles. I'm sure you'd have conspiracy nuts out there too.
Yeah,
in those days, but with the flow of information being not what it is today, I mean, it probably was far less common, I would say.
Yeah, some people were aware of it, but not. Was nowhere near as common as today.
Yeah, a lot more people trusted their government too, so they didn't feel they had a need to not trust. You know what I mean? So it was a different time.
Yeah, and here's the obelisk in Dealey Plaza with the reflecting pool, and this obelisk, like the architect states, it does represent the phallus of Osiris. If you count the segments, it's 40.
Wow.
And yeah, like in the myth of Osiris. And obviously the flame is at the top of the obelisk. So what else do we see? Yeah, so this is essentially an outdoor temple of the sun that was built by the Masons. And there is a plaque that commemorates the first Masonic temple that stood there prior to the construction of the plaza itself. So this is very interesting. So JFK was murdered in the outdoor temple of the sun.
Right.
Yeah, and when exactly was he murdered? Well, let's look at the timeline. Yeah, so here's what the Wikipedia entry says for the timeline. The motorcade was scheduled to enter Dealey Plaza at 12:10 p.m., followed by 12:15 p.m. arrival at the Trade Mart. So somewhere between 12:10 and 12:15, he was supposed to be passing through the plaza.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is significant about it? Well, it turns out that it is pretty much bang on the local apparent noon, the solar noon.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time when the sun is at its highest. Here's I just opened up a solar calculator and entered November 22nd, 1963, Dallas. And here's the solar noon. It's 12:13 for that date.
Wow.
And so the murder took place in an outdoor temple of the sun built by the Masons, and it took place exactly at solar noon. And if you study solar worshiping cults, or let's say cult of Baal, this sacrifices were usually carried out right at solar noon when the sun was the highest.
Wow.
It was at its highest.
It's quite wild.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, and then we have to examine the the story of Hiram Abiff. Just for the listeners who might not be familiar, Hiram Abiff is a mythical figure in Freemasonry who sort of plays the role of Christ in their legend. And
right.
yeah, and the Masons are exposed to this story during the initiation into the third degree, the Master Mason degree. And basically what happens in the story is there is this architect or master builder, Master Mason, by the name of Hiram Abiff, who's charged by King Solomon to erect the Solomon's Temple. And close to completion of the temple, he's confronted by three lower Masons, three apprentices, who want to know the secrets of the Master Mason, but are not willing to wait for the completion of the temple. They want to know them now. So they confront the Hiram Abiff character. And when Hiram Abiff refuses to divulge the secrets, they strike him. Each of them strikes him 3 times. Here's what the actual. This is a picture that I took from a book that I have. It's called Light on Masonry. Mm-hmm. Here's what happens. The conductor answers, "Our Grandmaster Hiram Abiff." Our Grandmaster Hiram Abiff exclaims the ruffian, which is one of the lower workers. Mm-hmm. "He's the very man I wanted to see," seizing the candidate by the throat at the same time and jerking him about with violence. This is what happens in the initiation ritual. "Give me the Master Mason's word, or I'll take your life." The conductor replies, "I cannot give it to you now. But if you will wait till the Grand Lodge assembles at Jerusalem, if you are worthy, you shall then receive it. Otherwise, you cannot." The ruffian then gives the candidate a blow with a 24-inch gauge across the throat, on which he fled to the west gate, where he was accosted by the second ruffian, Jubilo, with more violence. And on his refusal to comply with his request, he gave him a severe blow with a square across his breast, on which he attempted to make his escape at the east gate, where he was accosted by the third ruffian, Jubilum, with still more violence, and refusing to comply with his request, the ruffian gave him a violent blow with a common gavel on the forehead, which brought him to the floor and killed him, on which one of them exclaimed, "What shall we do? We have killed our Grandmaster Hiram Abiff." And then the story goes on that they hide the body and escape, and then the body is found by King Solomon's men, and they eventually resurrect him.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is one of the most central stories in Freemasonry, and it's obviously not meant to be taken literally. It's an allegory.
Right.
Yeah, there are many explanations of what the allegory stands for. One of the more plausible ones that I've seen was that Hiram Abiff represents Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, who was arrested by King Philip. And the 3 ruffians who betrayed him represent the Pope, King Philip, and the Order of Knights Hospitallers, who were kind of a competing force to the Knights Templar.
Right.
And who received all the possessions of Knights Templar in Europe after the Knights Templar were outlawed.
Right.
So this is one of the explanations that I've seen and I consider plausible. But it is very interesting that JFK received the same wounds as Hiram Abiff. 2 of them in the actual plaza from being shot, and the third one he received in the hospital when they were trying to perform an operation on him. Mm-hmm. And so here's the JFK autopsy report. If you can see the second paragraph.
Yeah.
from the top, situated on the upper right posterior thorax, just above the upper border of the scapula, there is a 7 by 4 millimeter oval wound. This wound is measured to be 14 centimeters from the tip of the right acromion process and 14 centimeters below the tip of the right mastoid process.
Right.
Yeah. So this is the head wound, and now everybody knows about the head wound, and he was also shot in the neck, situated in the level of the third and fourth tracheal rings. Is a 6.5 centimeter long transverse wound with widely gapping irregular edges. And also in the hospital, he received a chest wound of 2 centimeters while they were trying to bring him back from the dead, I guess.
I see what you're saying.
So very interesting. So exactly the same wounds as Hiram Abiff.
Wow.
So basically.
Wow. In the Temple of the Sun at
so on 656th anniversary of the arrest of the papal bull that was issued by Pope Clement V, condemning all Knights Templar and death. The first and only Catholic president of the United States of America is ritualistically murdered in an outdoor Temple of the Sun at high noon.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and receives the same wounds as Hiram Abiff in the one of the legends of Freemasonry.
Yeah,
while about to exit the temple, just like in the story of Hiram Abiff.
Well, I mean, if the powers that be wanted to take him out, I mean, for whatever reason, there's lots of different, there's lots of different theories. Probably I would say the most plausible reason to take him out would be as a regime change, like same thing that the United States does in other countries. I think they did it to themselves because they were scared of what he might be doing. Like, he wanted to basically pull everyone out of Vietnam. You know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of different things. Working with Cubans, the Russians. I don't think the deep state wanted the Cold War to end at all because the bankers war is good business, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you also have to realize that there are different factions who are.
Yeah, that's where I was headed. That's where I was headed with next. Is that like. These things could be like contract hits. They could be any number of motivations, like as far as how to go about it. But yeah, I mean, taking him out like in a ritualistic kind of a fashion.
Yeah, and keep in mind that he was the only Catholic president in history, and prior to that, the country was always run by Masons. So,
yeah, I mean, they built the city, right? So I mean.
Yeah, the city the plaza was built by Masons, and the country has been run by Masons pretty much.
Exactly.
Until that point.
So I mean, yeah, that's wild. I've never seen this this angle before.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I definitely think it was a deliberate ritualistic murder that we can debate a lot about the reasons why they carried it out, and we probably will never know. But
deferring it to a ritual is almost it's kind of like what they end up doing all the time anyway. We've seen a lot of different ritual killings, like with celebrities and other the singers and actors and what have you. It's very, very common. You know what I mean? Almost in your face, like it's almost very obvious.
Yeah, the killing of the king ritual. They killed the king.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. That's wild. Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, in light of, like I said before, with the new Kennedy files that have been released, I mean, that's just a big shit show. I mean, they're only going to let us see what they want us to see. It's a controlled release of information. Yeah, there might be little nuggets and inconsistencies that you can pull out and try and draw conclusions, but there's nothing there. There's no smoking gun. There's, I think it probably just asks more questions. I mean, I've traveled around the YouTube sphere there, looking at different people's takes on. I didn't read much of the files myself. I started, but I could tell right away as I was starting to go through it. It was just diarrhea, really.
Yeah, it don't bring any clarity. They only brought more confusion.
Absolutely. Now everyone's on about, well, you know, what did Lee Harvey Oswald do in Mexico City? Now this is the new big thing. This is like, oh, well, that's got it. Well, apparently, apparently the United States, CIA rather, had several different outposts in Mexico City, and they talk about all these different programs with clever names and shit. But really, at the end of the day, like I said, some of this information just has no real relevance anymore. You know what I mean? Like, either these groups don't exist, these programs don't exist, the people definitely in most cases don't exist now. So they can control. Yeah, they can control the information however they like. I mean, anyway.
And they've thrown a whole bunch of completely irrelevant
absolutely
events in there, like Clinton's visit to China, I believe it was. Yeah.
How'd that get in there?
and the assassination of MLK.
Right. Yeah. There's also some bits about with Robert Kennedy being assigned to head the CIA. Apparently that was a big no-no. But I mean, it's all water under a bridge now in light of what's happened. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of this information release, it's just been a slow burn, really.
Yeah. And as far as the reasons for the assassination itself, obviously there are many different theories. One of the fallacious ones is that he was threatening the Federal Reserve. That's completely not true. JFK.
I was looking at that earlier, and like, a lot of people seem to think that that's the case, but I think it kind of got taken out of context. Yeah,
completely out of context. Actually, if the listeners want to learn more about it, I recommend going to James Corbett's interview with G. Edward Griffin.
Actually, I watched that one.
I watched this a while ago.
Yeah.
And G. Edward Griffin is probably the expert on the Federal Reserve, and because he wrote the famous book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
And he knows a lot about the Fed, and he completely debunked that whole notion that JFK was threatening the Federal Reserve. What JFK did with the signing of that executive order was he simply transferred the authority to inject a certain number of United States notes, which were backed by gold or silver.
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to the Federal Reserve notes, which were represented the majority of the currency in circulation.
Right.
He simply transferred the power to create those notes from the president's office to the United States Treasury, and the injection of those United States notes was not something new. It has always been going on since the Civil War.
Right.
This
is something they've been doing on a regular basis then.
Yeah, this is something that was happening on quite regularly. They were simply injecting a certain number of those notes, and he simply transferred the power to do that from the president to the Secretary of the Treasury.
Right.
And that's it. This is not.
That's the extent of it, really. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. And so the whole notion that he was about to dissolve the Fed or something like that is complete BS. As far as him threatening the CIA, that's a much stronger case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I see, putting his brother in there, to head the CIA was kind of like having a babysitter around. And I think they didn't like that very much.
Oh no, definitely not.
You know, so they're having this guy, you know, breathing down their necks like all day long, like looking over their shoulder. And I think that caused a little bit of internal problems.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And also there was the one of the possible reasons was that JFK was the first president to initiate the integration of blacks into the American society, trying to he was fully supportive of the civil rights movement, which was whose goal was to give them African American population equal rights.
Yeah,
and this was
also
this was also kind of a no-no with the deep state of that.
At the time, definitely. Yeah,
they're definitely very racist.
Well, and he was also trying to do good by Russia as well. He's trying to make the relations much better with Russia, and
that's true.
Well, and being a communist in that day and age would get you killed, basically. So I mean, it was he was ruffling a lot of feathers trying to create a better country. I think, for whatever his motivation is, I can't speak for that, but my point is, it's like. Yeah. In their eyes, I think he was seen as a threat because, you know, they liked things the way they had it. Like, you know, the bankers, the investors, the military industrial complex. I mean, at that time, they liked where things were headed.
Yes, exactly. And there was sort of an outsider who was not really playing along too well.
Yeah, exactly.
And what better way to get rid of him than to kill him? On live TV, by the way.
Yeah.
With the whole nation watching. And so this was sort of their 9/11, I guess, because many people who have witnessed that murder live on TV or lived at the time, this was an event that very much deflated the optimism of the nation. It really kind of broke the backbone.
Yeah, and then Lyndon B. Johnson, of course, he steps in and just changes everything up.
Yeah, and people have kind of lost faith in their own ability to, you know, direct things in the country, and we haven't witnessed that.
It's also a perfect opportunity for the deep state, whoever they are. You know what I mean? It's a perfect opportunity for them to start selling security to the people, because now, like you said, it deflated their general feel good happiness. You know, like it now that they're deflated, it's like this tragedy happened. Nobody actually knew who did it. So I mean, now you can sell these people security. Like we can protect you. We can start, you know, taking you. I think that's where things started to slide downhill, to be fair.
Yeah, not quite extensive as
no, but you can
9/11. But yeah, I understand. Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is you can start installing the mechanics of the deep state, like to preclude like what happens later. You know what I mean? So like it's like planting the seeds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
that's wild. Anyhow, so what do you think now? Like, where do you think this is all headed? I mean, on a slightly different note, I've been reading so many conflicting things about Trump and his opinion of the CIA. Is he playing them? Is he playing the CIA, or do you think he actually is working with them, or what? What do you think?
I honestly do not know.
Because I've been reading so much crap, and it boggles my mind, because they always come into play. The CIA or the NSA, it always comes into play. And
well, one thing that he did do was he basically defunded the CIA participation in Syria, which allowed the Syrian Arab army to finally win the war, essentially.
Didn't didn't he bomb last week? Didn't he bomb some opium production facility that was supposedly CIA controlled as well?
I have not heard about it.
Yeah, I haven't been able to vet the story yet. I only read it on was the Marshall Report, I believe, which is I don't even know how factual they are, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, someone sent that to me earlier today, and I was like looking at that just before we went on the air. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think you might be onto something though, because there's too many coincidences there. The day, the time of day, the location, who would be involved. Yeah, I think you might be onto something there, because
I think he was murdered by Freemasons, by high-level Freemasons in the government. It wasn't the government who murdered JFK. It was a
absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. And
not even the CIA, I would say. It's people who were members of the CIA and other powerful. Yeah,
there's a tightly knit circle, which definitely goes back to secret societies, because they operate, incognito inside these groups, obviously. So it's I think you might be onto something there. What time are we looking at now? It's okay, so it's 20 to 5. We'll probably go a little bit longer, not much longer. I just wanted to do this podcast as basically just to kick off my new channel and reintroduce myself to the YouTube sphere. And also I'd like to kind of give you guys a little kind of a sneak peek. I'll be going into the topic of presidents and prime ministers in my very next video that I'm producing. So if you guys would like, you can leave me comments below if you have any questions, or if you have any information that you'd like to send me, or anything that you would like me to cover. Just go ahead and leave that information down in the comments below this video. It will go back into the YouTube library as soon as the podcast ends, so you can always watch it later. And this has been very, very educational here, there, Bug Smasher.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was like sharing this information because with all the this info that has been circulating regarding the JFK murder, I think many people have lost the correct direction of where they should be looking.
Well, that's another thing too. Crystal on live chat there asked about why files include MLK and President Clinton, muddying the waters, she says. And it's like, I think that's exactly what it is. They just put in so much crap that it's easy to take some things out of context. It's easy, you know what I mean? And then it's easy to repeat that. And then other people are getting fed information that is incorrect. You know what I mean? And it just keeps on spreading like that to a point where people just believe stuff that has absolutely no relevance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like saying the mob took out, JFK or this or that. Like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, maybe some members of the mob were involved.
Yeah, Jack Ruby. Ruby was definitely mob, but he took out Oswald, right? But I mean, but Jack Ruby also had his fingers in some other pies too. If you go and look that stuff up, it's equally as interesting actually, because you can start to see that network that you're talking about, like this Freemason network. It starts to make a little bit more sense, actually, some of it. Yeah,
and there's one more rabbit hole that people might go down, is the trial of Clay Shaw, who was arrested in actually 1967 and tried for alleged participation in the conspiracy. And but this is not something that people know about. That at least one person was tried and eventually acquitted, but I'm not entirely sure that he was completely innocent, to be honest. And the certain ties to CIA have been brought up during the trial. So
right,
yeah, look it up. Trial of Clay Shaw.
Trial of Clay Shaw. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to. I'll have to do a little bit.
CLAY.
Yeah, I have actually heard the name. In fact, I think I heard that name in the in that Corbett Report video. Actually, I think it was mentioned.
Oh, did he mention it? Oh, okay.
Maybe I watched a few videos that day, so it might not have been that one. They kind of all just kind of coalesced into a big ball of data in my head, and but yeah, that's quite cool. Do you have any other suggestions for the listeners in regards to other directions they can go in for finding more information?
Well, not really. I mean, I think what I presented today is fairly simple, right?
Right.
Just
Well,
it's a matter of going down each of those stories, separate stories that form
the whole picture.
form the whole picture.
Right on. Well, if you don't mind, if you could email me or send them to me on Twitter or something, send me links to all of these pages that
Sure.
you've shown us in the presentation.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'll make sure that I include them in the description below for everyone to check this stuff out themselves.
Oh yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah, I think we can safely wrap this up here. Yeah, that was very educational, and look forward to doing this again. And for you guys listening there, I should be having my first video up sometime this week. I am very busy with work and stuff like that, so I don't get the time that I don't get the time I need to really be able to do too much work after I'm done my job. So yeah, I take the time as I can take it.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
But that being said, I do plan on bringing back the Save the Silly Humans podcast on my main channel, and I just don't have a day in mind yet. It could very well just be a Sunday afternoon thing. It will not be an 8-hour podcast like it was back in the day. But yeah, anyway, stay safe, people, and don't do anything I wouldn't do. All right. We're going to sign off with that. Would you like to say anything to anyone there, Bug?
Well, I can give people out my Twitter account, but that's about it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's a real bug smasher on Twitter.
Real bug smasher on Twitter.
Yeah, real bug smasher on Twitter.
Okay.
That's about it.
And you can find me on Twitter too. I'm at Tiberius74, and Tiberius is spelled Tyberius 74. Anyhow, yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or anything you want me to cover, please send me a message either on Twitter or in the comments below. And yeah, look forward to next time. And take care. Bye-bye.